stories from r/paranormal. Follow for more.
I live in Tennessee and I think something's going on. I've been having weird incidents and things happening. It started a few weeks ago. The weather's been getting to that point where we see more creatures moving back in, but I think something's come back with them. I have braces, so every night I have to go out to the back porch to use the water pick after brushing my teeth, and I noticed something. I don't know. Off I guess. I live next to a smallish creek, so every night we get the usual bugs and frogs. But it wasn't there, like something had turned the volume to 0 on noise-cancelling headphones. I was standing there when I noticed it. For context, the way the tree line is, it surrounds the field next to my backyard in an almost crescent shape, so it's pitch black when there's no moonlight. But anyway, as I was standing there, I saw something barely there for a second before it backed into the trees. It was fairly large from where I was standing. Stark white and slow. I just thought it was my eyes playing tricks on me, and I walked back inside, turned the lights out and stayed at my swirling for a few hours. But these last 2 weeks, I don't know, it's like everything took a step in the wrong direction. There's been a whole bunch of weird shit, but I'll give the 3 that brought me here. He saw a large man-sized shadow walk from one side of the balcony to the other, and he even heard the floor creak as if there were footsteps. It was sort of out of the corner of his eye. Then last night the same situation. He was sitting in a chair reading in the corner of the living room at night, and he saw the shadow of a person, man-sized, appear on the bedroom door directly across from his chair. I was in the bedroom and no one else was around. What are we dealing with? I've never seen anything, but he's going out of town soon and I'm so scared. Hello everyone. I want to start by saying that I have always believed in the paranormal. As a child, it has fascinated me in many different, sometimes terrifying ways. I grew up in a mid-sized to small former coal mining city in Pennsylvania. My house at the time was an older, small, 3-bedroom house in a historically lower income area. For as long as I can remember, I have felt the presence of spirits in that home. As a child, I would wake up constantly in the middle of the night sweating and in fear that something was watching me from the far left corner of my room. That feeling would never go away, but got stronger. I never felt alone while living in that home, always on edge. It got to the point where I was in my late teens still sleeping with the lights on because I was that terrified of the presence that lingers over me at night. In terms of seeing things, the truly only horrifying image I remember seeing was as a child. However, this totally could have been the product of my childhood imagination, was opening my downstairs bathroom door and seeing my dog. At the time, he was alive, as a rotting corpse staring back at me. When I shut the door and reopened it, the image was gone. My dogs would bark at random nosies in the house and would sometimes bark at nothing, but the animals of my house would never come into my room. They would always whine by the door and scratch until I let them out. I never really thought about that until now. One thing that would happen to everyone in the house was things going missing. Granted, we were a large family in a smaller home, but things were always moving around and never in the place we would remember. In my room, this was a consistent experience I could never escape. CW, mental health and mentions of suicidal ideation. One thing that always stuck with me was the way that house made me feel mentally. Granted, my family dynamic didn't help the situation, much better now, but at the time was rocky. But the best way I can put it into words was something was sucking the energy and life out of my existence. I felt the most depressed and suicidal I have ever felt for the span of 4 years while living in this house. During this time, these feelings of being watching and stalked were at their highest. I felt truly and utterly alone, yet my presence was never alone. A lot of these problems would end up fading, but never really went away. My grandfather would pass in 2016, and since then, the entire energy of my house had changed. My mental health would improve immensely, and those feeling of being watched felt more comfortable and warming rather than cold and negative. You could feel a shift in the entire house dynamic, and just our overall moods and emotions were more stable. I felt comfortable staying home alone and simply using a nightlight to sleep. The last time I lived in that house full-time was in 2019. I moved away for college and would only go home to visit. I would be home for maybe 2 to 3 days with a 5-day visit for Christmas, but an energy was still there whenever I walked through that door. My friends from college would feel that same energy too. I asked my one friend as we were driving back from Pennsylvania to New York if she felt like my house was haunted, and without any hesitation, her answer was 1000%. I've been a custodial supervisor to college for the last 7 years. Before that I was a custodian at the same college for 7 years. I've cleaned and been in every building on campus from early mornings or late at night, and have seen and heard a lot of things in the last 14 years since I've started working here. One of the building that I used to clean wasn't a huge building. It has 3 floors with 2 classrooms on each floor, one on the east and the other on the west side of the building. Now to get to the classrooms there is a staircase in the middle of the building with a heavy metal glass door that leads to a small hallway and a couple of offices and the classroom. In first few months that I had been cleaning this building, everything was pretty quiet. Till one morning when I was on the 3rd floor cleaning one of my last classrooms for the day. I had been wiping down a table when out of the corner of my eyesight I see a man standing to the left of me. He had on a green yellowish striped sweater, and I remember thinking in that split moment that it looked like something from the 70s or something. Thinking a student got there early for class, I tell him, "Sorry, I'll be finished in a minute," and as I'm saying this I turn my head all the way to face him, and no one is there. There was nowhere for anyone to go. I even checked the building, I was still the only person there. To top it off, the front door was still locked. I told this to my husband who works as a custodian at the college with me. Of course he didn't believe me completely and thought I was seeing things. That is till the following year it became his building to clean in the mornings. When he calls me one day freaking out, because he was in the classroom on the 2nd floor, which was right under the classroom I saw someone in. He heard what sounded like someone right above him walking around moving things like chairs, and just making a ruckus. So right away he would go upstairs thinking the same thing as I did, that students came in early. So he would go up there to grab the trash, and do a quick clean, and would find the classroom still locked and completely empty. This happened to him at least twice. So I used to live in a big house, 6 bedrooms, 4 bath, basement, etc., by myself. I was there as a hiring perk and to look after the place for my boss who lived out of state but owned the home, one of those win-win situations. The first couple of months were fine, but when winter came I started hearing things coming from the 2nd floor. I lived pretty much exclusively on the 1st floor. It started with little bumps and bangs coming from above where I had my computer set up and progressed to distinct footsteps coming and going across the 2nd floor. I had been up to the 2nd floor to check up on it from time to time, and I knew that there were unfinished areas up there. One place always stuck out, an unfinished room that was a sort of walk-in closet for one of the upstairs bedrooms. It was attached to the garage attic, complete unlit. It was open when I went up to investigate the noises. I shut the door and locked it. 2 nights later, more noises. Footsteps leading from unfinished room to the bathroom, then nothing. The worst part, the door. The door that led to the unfinished room would not stay closed or locked. I tried everything. Eventually I pushed the bed up against the door to keep it from opening. That seemed to work. A few months went by without the door coming open, but I would find it unlocked all the time. As time passed I would hear noises all over the house. Mostly footsteps, but the occasional thump with no explanation. I cannot explain how horrifying it is to hear little taps up and down the hall from the other side of a bathroom door during your morning shower. I eventually moved out, but another employee moved in to take my place. His stay there only lasted about a month. The story he told me is that he was shaving one morning before work and he heard a slam like someone dropped a heavy stack of books right outside his bedroom door, then heavy footsteps like someone running down the hall. He won't stay there anymore and no one in the company will live in the house. I lived in an old, haunted house in college. Things got so weird that everyone moved out except for me and one roommate. Here's a few. I woke up at 3 a.m. because my roommate's door kept opening and slamming shut. From bed, I yelled for him to stop only to realize I was the only one home that weekend. As soon as I yelled, the slamming stopped, but the hippie beads I had hanging outside my closed door began to sway perfectly, yet violently, against the door frame. For a half hour, while I debated if I should pop out my air conditioning unit and jump out of the window, I laid in the fetal position in bed till it stopped. I woke up at 3 a.m., alone again, hearing the Nintendo in the back porch playing loudly. I figured a drunk kid came in and started playing. I grabbed a bat and walked towards the back of the house as the music got louder and louder. As soon as I opened the door, it was completely quiet. Mind you, it was loud enough to wake me up. I had friends over and told them the house was haunted. No one believed me, so I asked the ghost to do anything to prove it was there. As soon as I asked, all the lights in the house began flickering for about a minute straight. This was the middle of the day, everyone witnessed it. Almost everyone who stayed at my house had sleep paralysis at least once in the house. Every time something spooky happened, the house would smell like old lady, flowery, strong perfume. This house had a door built into the flooring that led to the basement. We always had a rug covering it up so no one knew it was there. Things would constantly go missing in the house, and turning up in the basement. This house had a coal chute from when it was heated by coal back in the day. Missing stuff would always be placed on the chute for us to come and get. Roommate had some issues. Once while playing video games late at night he saw mist kind of hovering from the kitchen then move into the bathroom. The bathroom had a trapdoor that led to the attic. That's where we figured the old lady ghost used to like to hang out. Roommate was up late, he went to go lock the doors and turn off lights. When he turned his back on the room and walked to the door, someone breathed into his ear. He thought it was me. I was sleeping. He turned around, pissed himself, and ran to his room. He was too afraid to come out and turn off lights and TV. Loud thumps in attic at all hours. For peace of mind, we told ourselves squirrels must have gotten in there. Voices would wake us up in the middle of the night. I spent many mornings on the front porch waiting for the sun to come up before I went back in the house. Coincidentally, I had a friend years later that rented from the same landlord, same town, different house, where he and all of his roommates moved out because that house was also haunted. I didn't think it was too weird, until he was telling me that when all of the weird stuff happened, it was accompanied by old lady, flowery, stanky perfume. Also, a lot of people had sleep paralysis in that house as well. Super late to this, but I had the best haunter ever and miss my first home because of this. I grew up with a cat, Boots, who was just a year my junior. Boots was motivated only by food and spent his later years sleeping on my parents' bed until someone came home. Then he'd jump off the bed, with a thunk of his front and back paws hitting the ground, and run to his food bowl to beg. He had to be put down when I was 18. My parents moved out of my childhood home during my first year of college. I went back a few times before it sold. Every time, I was certain I felt a cat's presence. Like, I'd hesitate my step because I was sure a cat just walked under my legs kinda thing. Also, upon walking in, I'd always hear a thunk, like Boots jumping down to beg for food. My mom and I went back for the last day my family would ever be in that home, and I told her on the way what I'd experienced. To my surprise, she had the exact same feeling. When we walked into the house, thunk. We exchanged shocked glances, and confirmed we both heard it. I went and sat in my empty room while my mum got the final things together, and while my eyes were closed I had to force myself to not pet a cat that I felt walk up to me, because I knew logically he wasn't there. Before leaving, we stood in the hallway outside my parents' bedroom, hugged each other, and cried, saying bye to my first home. I said I thought Boots was still around, and suggested we take his spirit to the new house. She agreed, so she called out, "Bootsy," from my parents' room, thunk thunk. We both heard it. I don't think he came with us. He never liked car rides. But I hope the owners since us have enjoyed their ghost kitty. He was a good boy. Edit, here's a picture of Boots from 2006, 2 years before we left that house the last time. I grew up in a huge 17th century house. Here are some pics to give you the idea about how creepy, and beautiful too, it was. Pic 1, Pic 2, Pic 3, Pic 4. Today it has been completely remodeled on the inside. But while we lived there, it was still in the beautiful old style with art, ballroom, marble floor halls, statues, you get it. During my 9 years living there I found out the following things. It once was a brothel, it once was a plague hospital, it once was a normal hospital, it once was a morgue. During World War II it was a German SS post before half of it got shot to shit and killed about 20 Germans. Fun thing was, the mortar that fell in the place my room was at where the SS were having a meeting at the time they think. Napoleon slept there a couple of days, which is pretty cool. There were 3 families where multiple murders occurred inside the house. Here are my accounts of growing up there. As a kid I saw a lot of shadows, heard a lot of weird noises, the usual. My sister who lived on the 3D floor came down to my room a lot at night to stare at me, sleepwalking, and sometimes slept in my room and forgot about it the next night. The doors creaked and opened and closed on themselves a lot, which can happen in an old house due to draft. Now this is all stuff that any kid can imagine due to the suggestive state an old house can give a person. Nothing really scary. Also the alarm went off a lot during the night, triggered by air. One time, my parents were in China for business. Me and my brother and sister slept at other places because my parents were away for quite a time. I had to go to hockey practice but I forgot some gear, so me and my friend went to get it. The house was engulfed in darkness and very silent. As we walked out of my room, we heard footsteps in the attic. 2 of my siblings had their bedrooms there, so I thought one of them was at home. I shouted at them, which made the footsteps stop. After 5 seconds or so we heard the footsteps coming closer to the stairs and actually setting foot on the very old wooden creaky steps. 1 step at a time. I actually felt a weight setting foot in front of me. Very strange. But I saw nothing. Nevertheless, we were 12, so we noped the fuck out of there. Outside my friend had a total nervous breakdown because he saw some scary face formed that looked like an alien. To him, he never set foot in my house again. I credit it all to the creepiness of the house, but that one night with my friend still gives me the chills. This might get a little buried but I'll share anyway. So 2 weeks before we moved, my dad and I toured our house and I noticed this guy was painting the water heater, which I thought was weird enough, but I was like 10, so whatever. Anyway, we moved in on a Wednesday and my parents let me stay home from school until the following Monday and preoccupied me with coloring books and a new dollhouse. In my brand new crayons pack, there literally wasn't a blue crayon, like it was a 64 pack, but there were only 63 crayons in it. One day I went downstairs into the basement and my blue crayon was next to the hot water heater and scribbled on there it said "Hi Fitness 6 Kevin." I was so confused. I started school and my new classmates were like, "Do you live in Kevin's house? Your house is gonna be haunted." It turned out that Kevin was a little 8-year-old boy that lived in our house prior to us, and he got hit by a car in the front yard. He would write notes if you left out a pen and paper, open and close doors, adjust the thermostat, the kind where you had to turn a knob, and always turn on Christmas music when it was that time of year. Smile, we had a swing set in the backyard, and even on the hottest, calmest days of summer, only the left swing would be moving back and forth. We had this dumb cat that I would lock in my bedroom at night, and every morning, my parents would open the door and let him out, then close it back. One night I woke up and the cat was meowing at the door, and it woke me up, but the door opened and the cat hissed and ran out really fast. I asked my mom the next morning why they didn't close my door, and they said they didn't open it. The last story is when I was very upset and nearly suicidal one year during Christmas break. The police just randomly showed up at my house. The policeman said he was patrolling our neighborhood and felt like something was wrong at our house. I'm absolutely certain Kevin had something to do with it. Thank you for watching till the end. If you want to see more videos in the future, just sub. Till next time, be safe.